Anjana Himalayan from Vodafone Idea, who is EVP Technology, Strategy and Architecture. We have Ms. Lara Devar from GSMA, who is the Chief Marketing Officer. We have Ranjani HG, Principal Data Scientist, Global AI Accelerator, Ericsson. And last but not the least, we have Ms. Akansha Saxena, Director, DT Cyber Strategy and Governance, KPMG. May we please have the honor of having all of you on stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. The topic of our session is the future engineered woman driving the digital paradigm. Um, as the digital landscape rapidly expands, women are taking on key leadership roles, driving key innovations, and fostering diversity within the technology industry. We have today with us very senior leaders who are holding key positions in their organizations, and they'll be sharing their thoughts on how women are spearheading digital transformation initiatives across various industries, role of women in leading advancement pertaining to emerging technologies like quantum computing, 5G, IoT, etc. Showcase example of women-led tech innovations that are driving the social changes. And we'll also focus on how women in strategic roles are envisioning and shaping the future of their organizations in digital era. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll start with our panel discussion. And my first question is for you, Satkirti. How do you think are women leaders redefining digital transformation strategies to enhance the operational efficiencies and the customer engagement?
Thank you for the question, Akansha. I mean, today, if you look at it, digital transformation is something that is, not just knocked at our doors, it's gone far, far ahead. So I don't think if you have to be really relevant in your industry and you need to make a difference, you really have to make sure that your systems and your things are much more transformed to handle end customers that's there. And today, like you just mentioned, we are looking at efficiency in everything that we do, both in terms of cost and both in terms of the experience that we deliver to the customers. So, I mean, I'll just take an example. We all have heard of IoT. IoT is today, they're everywhere, and we've been showcasing in Airtel most of our use cases either on 5G or IoT, and it's becoming so relevant. Like today, IoT is now part of digital meters, gas meters, utilities, etc. And if I am going to be running the system in a very, very mediocre methodology, I would not be in a position to actually cull out the data and be able to bring in the efficiency of running this operations across. We have close to, more than 40, 50 lakh of meters which are already moved into digital meters, and hence getting that data out, having the ability to pick up which meter is communicating, which meter is not communicating, which meter is, intermittently communicating, trying to get that data, process it and then put it back into the, system and be able to give it, because today the end consumer is so real time, and this will not have any space if you're post-processing data and then move it. So hence it's just so much more relevant for us to actually upgrade our systems and be able to get everything, which is here and now and real time. And that's why our systems are far more robust in what we do and how we go about doing things. So I think relevance is one thing. Second, look at it much more futuristic into what the entire environment is doing it, and be able to actually have the capability to turn it around much more faster, and then influence the overall investment and the organizations to be, upkeeping on this.
I think well said, because customer experience and demand these days are changing rapidly, and it is very important to be robust and agile in the approach. So my next question is for you, Ranjani. And what unique perspective do women bring to leadership roles, especially in emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, space technologies, or quantum computing? So maybe basis your experience, since you have done a lot of research around this topic and have seen women closely working in this space, if you can share your views.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. So So it's well known. There have been a lot of studies that diversity brings in innovation, right? It enhances innovation, creativity, and uh, that's one way in which having women in evolving technologies can help. This is well-known, established fact. But beyond innovation, what else happens is women have the soft skills like empathy. Um, you have ethics. You are able to do multitasking. And how does this impact? This is especially in AI. If you were to look at it, women leaders have been there in AI, but why does this become more relevant? So if you see, there are in AI is a reflection of the society, because the input that you get into these models is what is there in the society, right? And if there is bias already in the society, that becomes more relevant. And what women are able to bring is they are spearheading many of these awareness to the biases that are there in these models. So I can take a case, an example, 2018, like quite long back, right? Two women, Timnit Gebre and Joy. What they did was they analyzed whatever was the accuracies coming out of this facial recognition, which was introduced into the police department, and it showed a lot of bias with respect to the gender, with respect to the color of the skin, and so on. That's one awareness that has been spreading. Now AI has evolved into generative AI, and with generative AI, you will see that the outputs that are generated is like you see jobs and how it is versus gender versus race, and all of that is reflecting in what is coming out. So while it is a challenge, it's also an opportunity to evolve these emerging technologies to reduce these gaps. So I think that's a good space to be in, because we are able to do this. Apart from that, there were also issues which came around data consent, privacy, transparency, all of this. And this resulted in having regulatory bodies in each of the countries as to how these technologies should evolve. I think all of these have been spearheaded largely by women. That is in the global scenario. But if you were to look at the Indian scenario with AI itself, there have been research around diversities in Indian languages itself, or whether it's culturally aware music, or how deep fakes can be countered with AI. It's like coming a long way from what AI was having as a challenge to now using it along with the police force itself so as to counter the deep fakes. So that's a long way of evolution, and many of these have been looked at by women researchers within India in IITs and so on and so forth. If you were to look at Indian space industry, then you would probably know the women rocket scientists, Ritu Karidwala, many other women there who have been spearheading, and what drives them is mostly passion. And all of this is towards you're bringing in, women are bringing in not just competition, but also having a socially conscious future. That is where we are. That's my view.
I think this is a very insightful thing. Lara, do you want to add on anything pertaining to this responsible AI and how leadership can play a role in terms of emerging technology, especially responsible AI?
Well, thank you. I think the GSMA has quite a lot to say about responsible AI. And in addition to responsible AI, probably diversity in AI, so that we don't end up building in inherent bias. So we have launched an AI roadmap recently to help telcos, particularly on their AI journey, and delighted to be sitting next to people with much greater expertise than I have. But certainly we are excited about the prospects of AI at our own events. This is a topic that is pervasive. It's just everywhere, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's everything from the ethics of AI to the energy consumption relative to AI, but definitely very much aligned with you around responsible use. And I would also say you really emphasize the diversity aspect. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. My next question is for you, Anjana. How are women leaders contributing to shaping the future of deep tech and quantum computing, and what challenges have they overcome so far?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think if you ask me, deep tech and quantum computing, these are the areas which I think still evolving. women still are trying to make their ways out there. If you see some data points, right? So in Europe itself, there are only 6% of women who have access to these kind of technologies, or they are developing their careers in that area. Even US, I think if you see the data, 2022, we have around 22% of women who are having jobs in the high-tech companies or firms. Even in 2000, I think 10 years back, it was around 18%. So it has just increased by 4% in the span of 10 years. So that's not a very good or favorable number.
Right.
So, but I think women still are basically driving a lot of initiatives in different fields in this area. So, be it like research or innovation. So, there are few women like Michelle Simon and all. They are like have founded companies like Quantum Computing, Quantum Thoughts, where they are doing some research in area. There are like Dr. Fifi Lee, who's AI pioneer, right? So they have developed some algorithms which are helping in healthcare industry for diagnostics. So there are many women who are taking leads. They are making ways, but traditionally there has been always challenges. If you ask me, women definitely face challenges, right? It's a male-dominated area, right? So there are like women have to prove, or they have to meet higher standards. Okay, they have to prove every time that yes, they are capable of doing these things. When they are compared against the men in the same field, right? Then there are like they don't get the mentorship as well.
Yeah.
So men will be easily able to find their mentorship, right? So women will have issues if it comes for setting up the startups. Getting funding is also a challenge. So there are like, if you ask me, 23, it's a like probability of getting a successful funding of VCs for a women's creating a startup is, chances are 23% less than a men will get. So that's the statistics which is there. So unfortunately, yeah, there are the challenges, but women, I think they are always a fighter. They're always the winner. They will come up and they'll prove their way. I think we have some good people around in the dais itself. Yeah, so they are, I think, making their ways.
Yes.
So that's it.
So, right. So, very relevant statistics, and of course, a lot of improvement is required. And thanks for sharing the word of advice on how they can, penetrate into this space as well. Ranjani, your views on this, since you have been leading this agenda of emerging technologies.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with what Anjana said. I'm sure there are going to be challenges, and women are going to break the glass ceilings. If you look at, again, AI, I pick on AI because I'm in that area, so pardon me about that. Largely examples around that. So many of you will be aware of Coursera courses, right? And it's by Andrew Ng, but would you know that it was also co-founded by Daphne Koller, who is also a woman. So they don't necessarily get the spotlight, but they do their work anyway. Case in point to what you said. Or if it is Timnit Gebru and Joy, who looked at 2-year legal battle. These are researchers who took on huge companies, right? Women are breaking that glass ceilings as well. Or if you look at whether it's Ritu Karidwal from space, or we have in Ericsson our own unit head, Elena Fersman, Dr. Elena Fersman, who has been spearheading multiple research units. And all of these people, what do they say? They, while trying to juggle multiple roles, family, contributing to the tech, or looking at business, I think they also look at support from the men and the family, and that probably is also one of the challenges that people are trying to overcome. And that the men includes not just spouse. You can have managers, you can have mentors, as you mentioned. All of that becomes important. I think that's
Good to
very,
hear such examples. It's really inspiring.
It's very inspiring, and I gathered today Prime Minister Modi had talked about every girl should be a women leader. I think we have sufficient examples for us to go towards that, and we should.
Absolutely. My next question is for you, Lara. Can you share some specific examples of women-led tech innovations that have had a tangible impact on global challenges, maybe related to healthcare or environmental sustainability. If you can quote some examples.
I can. I just want to pick up on something that was said. So I was very nervous to participate in this panel. These are very smart women, engineers, and I'm a marketer. So thank you for having me on your panel with you. And congratulations to the IMC for having an all-woman panel. This is how we're going to break through some of those statistics that you talk about, isn't it? 35% of people that enter engineering schools are women. That's a low number. 26% of leadership positions in technology are women, and that number has stalled. These are not good statistics, but things like this start to move the needle. And for the organizers of IMC, I'm an organizer myself of an MWC, we have a huge responsibility as leaders to make sure women have platforms and voices, because we don't lack examples of women doing outrageously cool things, whether it's in the field of breast cancer research, stem cell research, whether it's in sustainability and energy. Women have an interesting perspective that we bring to the world based on how we perceive the world and how we live. The problems that we look to solve are slightly different. So whether it's women solving problems around solar energy to address maternal mortality rates, those sorts of things are happening right now and in our midst. I'm hugely encouraged on one hand, and hugely impatient on the other hand, that I want us to drive change more quickly. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Satkirti, do you want to add on anything in terms of, giving back to the society? How are women, working on such kind of tech initiatives?
Absolutely. I think, we have a huge responsibility, each one of us in our respective roles. I think either being as mentors or be able to go across and talk to the, to the world about, it's not a difficult journey. It's, it's what everybody believes that, you have always had a hard time being where it is. I don't think so. Mm-hmm. And I think I also have to give a lot of credit to my male colleagues and my peers who have actually just not backed us up, but also given us huge opportunities in actually portraying ourselves and sort of egged us on to be where we are today. And it's important because, when I sort of go to colleges and campuses for interviews or talk to them, you have a lot of youngsters, we just heard statistics that was there. And most of them do want to come up, but they always have this belief saying that somewhere over the course of your career, it's going to be very difficult for you to sort of navigate yourself and move it. And I think it's not true at all. Mm-hmm. And it's just that any limits is what you set for yourselves. Right. And that's important for everybody to consider. And that's why I think mentors and the ability to set examples and sort of guide, young kids, young girls. I remember when my function when I took over was about 2% of them were girls. And today I'm very happy to say I have 35% of my team, which is all-women team. And young girls who come across and they truly believe that if they do have a leader, one, I think as women, we also have a little bit of empathy. We understand them better. So we're a little bit more responsive for them to sort of balance it. I'm a true believer that multitasking will not work because you have to give your best to whatever you do. But at the same time, it's also important for you to balance off and then come back. So it's just that at one point of my time, I took a choice of being a mother than, taking up opportunities. I didn't let go of my career, but also it was important for me to give what I had to give back then. So it's just one balance, and two, the sort of just get that insights from somebody who's been there will actually let the rest of them believe that it is limitless, and that's what I believe in.
That's really remarkable, the way that you have given opportunities to various women's league in your organizations. My next question is for all of you, and maybe we'll start with you, Madhu. What challenges do women entrepreneurs face in tech startup ecosystems, and how are they overcoming them to disrupt the entire traditional market?
So thank you, Akanksha. I am primarily, I work with the government, have been in the government, for almost 36 years now. So, on the, I would say, women entrepreneurs or tech startups, I won't say I have a personal views on that, but definitely as we go through and see the experiences of people who have been working in this area, I think women, as all of us, I've mentioned, they bring very, very unique perspectives to anything that we do, and it's also because it is shaped by the kind of work and the roles that we as women have to do. But unfortunately, with the kind of systems which are there, although things have been improving, the support systems are still not there. So I think most importantly, the issues that women face as women entrepreneurs is primarily the funding. You'll find some data was also being shared. Because when it's business, it's about getting those, faith and trust of the venture capitalists or the banks to give you credits. And unfortunately, in our system, it is still not perceived that the women startup would do very, very well. So therefore, the kind of funding, I think that's a big challenge. As also she talked about the networks, the collaborations, the mentorship, that also becomes tough for women. Things have been improving, but I think these are two very big areas where we still need to work on.
Sure. So I think funding, perception, and networking, collaboration are coming out as the common themes. So Lara, do you want to add on any other challenges that you see that tech startup women entrepreneurs are facing, and any word of advice for them that how can they overcome it?
Yeah, to pick up on what's already been said, I think that very often we make the problem woman's problem to figure out instead of changing the systems of work to support us. So I think that as we have more and more female leaders, I'm hoping that the way we work, our approach to these things begins to shift to be more inclusive of all the genders. I think the other thing, when you talk about mentorship and networking, the other thing that I know is that shows like IMC are very often male domains, and they need not to be. Women need places like this where they can go to be inspired, where they can meet funders, where they can meet investors and engineers who spark incredible conversations. So we need to make atmospheres like this very approachable to women, I think, in order to encourage more of that kind of inclusivity.
We all go through the learning as well as imparting phases. But I think, we should track KPIs in trying to see how many of these programs in the larger global workforce is translating into what helps women as such.
Thank you so much. Do you want to add anything?
I think ma'am actually very nicely put it in terms of funding and in terms of the belief. I think, because capability is something that is always left to everybody to do, and that capability is always there. So I think two challenges today that as women entrepreneurs or women startup faces. One, the ability to navigate through the bureaucratic cycle that is there. So that's something that probably as a system, like we say, it's just not about it gets, like all my other colleagues on the table just said, that they would look at it more in terms of the perception that a woman would be able to sort of navigate in the system. But I think what is more important is, does the system enable them to do so? So I think that's a change that we need to bring in, and this can only happen when each one of us in our own platform, in our own space, keep actually pushing a little bit and just every time making a difference in what we do. And obviously the change will come in what we have to do.
I think Madhu ma'am also touched upon this. Support system is an important component, and it has to enable the women colleagues to come.
Yes.
Absolutely. My next question is again for you, Satkirti. In what ways are women influencing key technological investments and decision making to ensure a sustainable digital future?
I think, women, we as women leaders, obviously in our experiences, and everything is customer backward. At least I believe that every customer has a requirement, right? And since I'm part of an organization which basically builds and delivers solutions, it becomes so much more imperative that if we have to serve customer and we have to make the revenue matter to our, end customers, or, do I get business onto it? We just have to make that platform readily available. So today, like, I remember I walked into one of our customers as a courtesy visit, and they just said, like, you have connected us across the country, but if I were to sit in my office and just see which part of the country that I'm pulsing and which part of the country I'm not, can you just give it to me? Because you're monitoring it in your knock, but I don't have the visibility. I only know when something goes down because I get back to you on the same. But do let me know before that there is something that I need to be concerned about. And that was, at that point of time, sounded very, very simple, and it was such a simple ask. But when we got back to the drawing table and started looking at it, it was so much more complex, because I have to actually look at manageability. I have to look at what is it that I build in, then how do I go about connecting backwards, understanding what the customer, runs in terms of applications. And today, happy to share that, we have that use case running in our booth. And it wouldn't have happened if, that thought process of a customer telling me what they want. So hence, in terms of making the decision and making it relevant today, and be it in our own space, if you're not capable, bring in your respective people who are there out in the market, including small startups who can come and do a fabulous jobs around it. And we've picked up some of the use cases from somebody very, very small, and we've put our trust in them. And it's just that every time we build up something, a new different layer, I'm able to go back and tell the system saying that this is the kind of market that is there out. And if we are not able to make this difference, then we're not going to be there. We're not being able to play the space.
Right.
Somebody else is going to take it from us.
Very impactful examples that you quoted. Lara, your views on women influencing key technological investments in the organizations.
I think we won't have a sustainable digital future if we exclude half the population. So I think it's incumbent on the 26% of women that have leadership roles in this space to begin to put women, diversity, and gender equity on the CEO's agenda in the same way that a couple of years ago we put climate and the environment on the CEO's agenda. I think we have to take it that seriously. And so I'm working with a group of women and men, because we need men in this conversation, to create a framework for the GSMA where we look at activities around the world, from Women for Tech dinners to Girls for Tech training, through to measuring in the industry how we're performing at improving in this area, through to KPIs around at our own event, for example, last year, making sure that 45% of the speakers were women. And we have to look really hard for them, but they're out there and they have really important things to say. So the framework kind of has to go kind of all through the whole life cycle. We're also working with someone to reach school-age kids to address the stigma associated with engineering and maths for girls in some parts of the world, right? So I feel very inspired right now based on this work. We've had to go digging for it, but I think we absolutely have to get it on the CEO's agenda in order for us to drive change. More than tokenism, real change.
Good to hear about such projects. My next question is for you, Madhu ma'am. How can we create a more supportive environment for women tech entrepreneurs to launch and scale their ventures?
So, Akanksha, talking about supportive environment, and I would, actually like to go back a little bit, because the supportive environment, it just won't begin at that level. It has to begin from very early on. I personally believe that, to get more women, as Laura was saying, it's primarily, it's not just that giving a kind of, equal chance to women being 50% and in terms of the population. But if we look at the workforce, it is far, far lower. And there's, even at that leadership positions, Laura, you mentioned 26%, but I have my doubt, because the positions at the top, the percentage of women is really, really very low. So, the supportive environment needs to begin from very, very early on. And the business, it's actually going to help the businesses, because the kind of skill set that women possess, I'm not saying, I'm not generalizing, but the women, as we all see all around us, have huge number of strengths and capabilities, both in terms of, if we look at the, building the and fostering the collaboration, building those teams, empathy level, communication levels, in all those, and the kind of challenges, the different kind of challenges that they face in life, and therefore, being adaptable to environment, and also the flexibilities which are required. So in all those ways, women bring a very different and a much wider perspective. So for businesses, the products and goods and services which are created when the teams are inclusive, that is when they are both men and women in those groups, that they would have far more wider audience, for those kinds of products. So I firmly believe that, women really, there has to be a very, very inclusive setup. And it's not just for women, it's not for their equality only, it's also for, for the businesses. This is going to really help them. And the supportive environment that we are talking about needs to come from very early on. That is, at the stage of their education, which is very, very important, And also, kind of career choices that they make, the kind of decisions, the kind of guidance which girls need at that stage. It's really improving now over time, but one needs to give those choices to girls. As I earlier also mentioned, first, of course, it's very, very important that women, the kind of skills which are required, and therefore education in the STEM areas is very important. Mathematics, engineering, the new areas, new industries, which are basically thriving. They are tech industries, and therefore importance of getting women in those areas is important. So skill building is extremely important. Also, at the same time, I would say support in terms of government support would require, and you today heard Prime Minister Modi, there is a lot of emphasis which is now being given to women. So getting funding, the VC firms or angel investment firms, or even for the government to provide the funding in terms of special schemes like Stand Up India is a scheme, Mudra Yojana is a scheme, wherein women entrepreneurs get that kind of funding. And I believe that government also needs to encourage banks to provide funding to these kind of setups which are primarily women entrepreneurs, and some kind of tax incentives as well. So, this is how, in terms of both building their skills, providing them necessary funding, and at the same time, business is about, one is about the core domain knowledge, but at the same time, it's about the managerial skills which are required. So skills on financial management, HR management, also getting access to the market. That is another very big area where there is a need to develop those kinds of skills, provide those opportunities to women. On the other side, I think there is also, I talked about it earlier, the mentorship and collaborations. That's again excellent area where we need to work, and wherein those women entrepreneurs who have done well. We talk about Neha Satak from Estrom, and there are other women-led entrepreneurs who have done extremely well. So we need to have those kinds of a support system, those kind of a networks, talking in groups like this, wherein those who have done well are able to actually guide the new upcoming entrepreneurs. So I think that is one very, very big area which, to have those platforms wherein those who have come new, they think that they can take the risks, going by the experience of others, that they can also innovate and, work in those areas. So I think those are important. And one which is a harder aspect, is basically to change the perception in the society. And I think that's another very big area for the government to work, wherein a lot of public awareness campaigns, and especially for the women who have done well in the areas which have been traditionally been dominated by men, those industries. So they need to be publicly, there has to be campaign, and I would say maybe women of the Women Entrepreneur of the Year awards those kind of recognitions, once those are given and spread, those messages go across, I think that makes a huge difference. So these changes are going to come. They will come gradually, I know, but it feels so good to see the young team which are here. So when I joined engineering about 37 years back, so we were just very few. There was one girl in civil engineering in the entire college. And in my batch, of course, electronics, we used to have more girls. So 10 in about by batch of 35, but civil engineering, mechanical engineering, hardly one or two girls. But as we now move and we go to the universities and colleges, it feels good to see that the numbers have grown, and also women doing so well, and across all areas. So high tech, wherever you talk about, it's happening. But we really need to speed up. And I completely agree with Laura when she said that, just as we said, climate change, that we really need, all of us need to work in a mission mode for that. It's time for all of us to work in a mission mode for getting more women out there in leadership roles and in tech roles. And I'm sure, I'm very confident it will be a beautiful world and a much, much better world. I'm not sure if men sitting here are happy with that idea, but I'm sure it will make difference. Thank you.
Of course, this is wonderful. I mean, yes, all of us are working towards that beautiful world, and thank you for sharing the insights on what government is doing and what all should be done in this space. Lara, considering your global experience, do you want to share that what are other countries doing in terms of, such kind of initiatives where they are empowering women, especially from the ministry or the government side of things? Have you seen?
So one of the things that we're seeing in places are lots of entrepreneurial awards for women, which I think is one of the ways that we can encourage women across industries really into that field. From our organization's perspective, we are seeing things crop up like Women for Tech dinners, where I was in China earlier this year and we had a Women for Tech dinner, and we've had maybe around 20 women at the table, and these were CEOs and COOs and CTOs of some very large companies, and they had never been to dinner together. There was no network for these women. So it seems like such a simple idea, doesn't it, to just invite some people to dinner and create a network, but that's incredibly important, that networking aspect for women. And one of the reasons women don't do it is because we're busy, because we have jobs, plus when we get home, we have jobs. And so we've got to create atmospheres where we can encourage that for women. We also have a program where we create challenges for women entrepreneurs in the tech space through our 4 years from now, our own startup platform. And I think that's really, really important to make sure that those kinds of ideas are seeing funding, that there's challenges to bring those ideas to bear, and then rewarding the really good ideas. And then, like I said, the other thing is that we're going out and finding other organizations that are doing good work. So there's not a shortage of work going on in this area of gender equity. What we lack is momentum to drive real and meaningful change. And so by going out and talking with those other organizations and bringing the work together and using platforms like IMC or platforms like MWC, we can create that momentum. We can have these conversations to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those global perspectives. My last question, which is for Anjana, and then we'll open it for audience if they have any questions. How can women in tech further drive social innovation, especially in areas like education and healthcare?
I think women are doing a lot of work in these areas, like education, research, healthcare. So like AI, the field of AI. So there are like many women creating AI platform where they are enabling telemedicine, remote care, so and health diagnostic. The algorithms are being developed around those areas, right? Where diagnostics are so easy now. And with telemedicine and all those things, people who are in the remote area have access to experts which are available, right, through the platforms. Then I mentioned earlier also the Dr. Fifi Lee. She has developed a very good algorithm on healthcare diagnostics using AI and machine learning. And then people like women are doing like Coursera. She mentioned, right? Daphne Kohler. She's the founder of Coursera. So a lot of people are using that platform today for getting certification, remote education, right? So a lot of work are happening in this area, and then research and innovation like in quantum computing. So there are ladies who has developed, who has founded certain companies where through quantum computing they are either developing hardware for distant communication using quantum computing, or they are doing some research in that area. So I think AI, ML, quantum computing, you name it, and presence of women are there one or other. In education, again, there is a lady called, I remember, Reshma Sojini. I think she is the one whose mission, she's founded a company. The mission of the company itself is empowering the women and enabling more and more women to learn the coding. So she has a platform which has like the girls who can code. The name of the company is that. So obviously, a lot of women, she wants to attract a lot of women into the tech side of it. So I think a lot of work is happening in that area. Like name it, and I think women are there.
Yeah, there are multiple examples now, and they are leading by examples. Thank you. Thanks. This was a very insightful discussion. I would now like to open the forum for our audience. If there are any questions that the people want to ask pertaining to women in leadership, women in tech, feel free to.
Hi, my name is Tarini. So I wanted to talk about the measures that you said that some organizations are taking for increasing diversity. I think you mentioned that there are some targets that are given to functional heads, that this much percentage of their team needs to be women employees. Sometimes these measures may result in a mentality that some employees are just diversity hires and may not be that competent. And this ties back to another thing that you mentioned, that women employees feel the need to put in extra efforts to prove that they can do the same thing as men. So, like, what are your views on that? What can be done to resolve this challenge?
It's a tough question. Basically, I think needs to be answered by the men. but I think there are like obviously when organizations are serious about it, and it's mandated, right? It's part of their KRAs. So it's not just for filling the blanks, right? If you see, I'm talking about my organization. Obviously, I can vouch for that. So there are like women leader in the technology function. I'm being the example of that. So a lot of support is being provided by the men colleague we have, right? Our management. So it's not for the sake of like for filling up the numbers, but definitely there may be some areas where concerns are there, like just to fill in the area, they have hiring the people, or women have to prove and they have to meet the higher standards. There are definitely some areas where I think we need to work upon. So it's not up to only for the men managers there. Even now the forums are there, multiple forums which are being created. So if you've been hired and if you see that you are not being given enough opportunities, or you cannot basically voice your opinion, or you are not coming up to the expectations, right? So there are forums which are created within the organization where you can openly voice your opinion, you can raise your voice, or you can basically pinpoint those things, right? So actions are taken, and they are taken very seriously. So there are forums, definitely an organization, if they are serious, they are taking it seriously.
I can add.
Just for that.
Thanks. I largely agree with what Anjana said. And one of the things when you are a woman in, let's say, core tech, and you have to prove yourself not only to your bosses, you'll have to prove yourself to the peers. So collaboration becomes very important. So women have to take collaboration very seriously. I think I'm privileged. I have a bunch of very good colleagues, wonderful boss, and then the organization also supports having diversity there. They look at all the opinions that are coming in, all the inputs that are coming in from women seriously. So it's not necessarily tokenism, but we do know that there exists tokenism. So one of the things, as Anjana mentioned, is you have feedback points at regular intervals so as to ensure these sort of gaps can be filled. That is one. Another is bringing in the mentorship aspects, right? So if there are gaps and you give the feedback, then there should be someone so as to help you fill those, or sensitizing men and others so as to ensure that don't always look at every hire as just a diversity hire. That is one. While also trying to meet the KPI by incentivizing hires from the diversity group. So it's on both sides of the spectrum, according to me. But yeah, the challenge does exist, but I would also say a lot of collaboration has to happen. Your value to the society should be seen. So.
I'll just further add on to it. Like, yes, you said there is a number, there is a target that all of us have. But I think it's just with the intent of actually improvising on, gathering and setting up an open viewing, saying that do make sure that, that role is capable of, a woman is able to handle it. But today, if you look at it, there are so many roles that we believe a woman can't do, like a sales job, going out in the market. But we have classic examples that places like Rajasthan, etc., we have young girls who are going out as sales guys, going across. And second thing is, I think there's also a buddy concept. It's just not a mentor, it's a buddy where you have somebody like a friend who basically, collaborates with you, like what, Ranjini was saying. And further to the same, it's just, I see a lot of male colleagues of mine who actually vouch for these woman-centric roles, then, who basically set up the saying that we do want women on the board, because one, there is a lot of balance, and two, there's also setting up a sense of how just you put it in a sense of example that, they are able to fill into these roles. So it's just not a target driven or something like that, but it is also wherein you sort of set the environment which is very, very conducive for you to have women on board on the same. I think that's the cultural shift that all of us are taking it to, and it's not number based or target based. It is still getting better, but I must say it's gotten a lot better over the last few years. That's there. Yes.
Lara, your
Question
views.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think there's probably not a woman on this panel that hasn't been accused of being the token woman at the table. And I'm okay with that because I work with a lot of men who have been the default position. But what I would also say is that if there are businesses out there who aren't committed to diversity, they are ignoring the evidence that it improves their bottom line, their shareholder value, and their customer satisfaction. There is mounting evidence of that business imperative. So if you're at the table, it's better for the business. If the business is ignoring that, it's at their peril.
Absolutely.
Completely agree.
I just want to extend the last question and ask you, so what does it take for someone like us to reach where you guys are? So what do we need to do then?
Determination, hard work, and just keep doing whatever you're doing. Thank you so much, panelists. It was a very insightful discussion. During this discussion, we saw multiple examples. We heard of multiple examples that how women are leading the digital initiatives and are driving that kind of social change in the society. Also, how by working together, we can make more inclusive and equitable tech industry. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks, IMC, for hosting us. We just have, I think,